All right. We are live, I'm guessing. Can I get a confirmation in the chat, please? Oh, yeah, I see. Live for 17 seconds. Right.
Ooh.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. We planned it for 4, so let's wait 2-3 minutes for people to join. And then we'll introduce. I had to unmute you. How's your day been, and from which country are you guys joining? I see some activity from Italy in the chat.
Oh, they're all being very shy.
Yeah. Emiel Koolstra. That's a Dutch name, so easy to guess where she's from. Netherlands. Okay. 3 for the Netherlands. Jochem Top also sounds Dutch. 4. Jeroen Balk also from the Netherlands. 5. Argentina.
Big Dutch contingency going on here.
Yeah, jeez. Spain. Crux. Serbia. Estonia. See.
Argentina, west coast of states. Whoa, going all over.
Yeah, south of France. That's hot. I went camping there 2 years ago, and it was a heat wave, like 41 degrees, and I was in a tent with my girlfriend. So imagine that. UK, nice. Barry's neighbor. Holy shit, we're going global. Intercontinental webinar. Just waiting 1 more minute, and then we'll kick off with the introduction. Okay, which continent are we missing? We've Africa, maybe. Are there people from Africa? Belgium. Okido, let's go. Yes, everything is set. So welcome, guys, to the Speculation Rules webinar. Yeah, we're going to cover some topics like what is speculation rules, why do we have speculation rules, how you could use it, because in the end it's an API that the Chrome team, including Barry, has built for you to get faster pages. But let's start with a short introduction of ourselves first. So, yeah, my name is Jordi Scholing, but most people probably say Jordi, that's fine. I live in the Netherlands, top part, so not Amsterdam, but Groningen. I do the customer success for Rumvision, also a web performance specialist over there. I became a Google developer expert a little bit over a year ago, I think. Fell in love with web performance maybe around, 3-4 years ago, when I had my own web shop in Organic Tea. And even though I was also focusing on the Lighthouse score in the beginning, so you can bully me with that, Barry. I studied graphic design. So yeah, not doing anything with that anymore besides creating visuals for this webinar. I have 2 cats, and yeah, in my off time I play video games. And I brought Barry.
Hello, everyone. I'm a web performance developer relations on the web performance developer relations team in Google Chrome. I'm a self-confessed web perf geek, and I used to play around and do this all in my spare time. And now I get paid for it, so I get to come along and help developers hopefully make their websites faster. That's part of my job. I have 3 kids. They're 5, 9, and 11. And since they came along, people are like, oh, whenever you join these sorts of things, they're like, oh, can you say something interesting about you or your hobbies? And I have no hobbies. I've forgotten how to read anything that's more than 140 characters or 280 characters. I'm hoping when they get a little bit older, I'll be able to get a bit of a life back. But the minute it's work, kids, sleep, pretty much rinse and repeat. It's not that bad, but yeah, kids take up a lot of your life. That's me.
Yeah.
So say hello to everyone in the chat.
Thank you, Barry. And also pretty cool that Barry can join us on this webinar where we will share knowledge about Speculation Rules API. We have some slides to begin with. And yeah, I'm guessing this will take around 15 minutes, maybe a bit longer. You know how these things go. And afterwards, we have time for questions, of course, which should be the biggest chunk of this webinar. So let's go. So my main question to Barry is like, why do we have a Speculation Rules API? There were some things in the past that kind of did the same, but you reworked it, and now all of a sudden we have this API. Why is this?
Yeah, so for those who aren't aware, the Speculation Rules API is a way of you saying, I want to speculate or pre-fetch or pre-render the next navigation. So I'm on page A, and I think my customers or my visitors are going to go to page B. So you could wait. When they click on it, page B has to load up, and it takes a little bit of time, and then it presents page B. Or if you know, and we'll talk a little bit later how you can know that with a high likelihood they're going to go to page B, you can basically do some of that work in advance. So you can sit there and say, okay, I'm going to get page B. Either I'm just going to fetch page B so that whenever they click on it, at least you've saved the network request, you've got it in the cache, and you can start rendering that page. Or what's more exciting is the full pre-render. So you get that page, you get all the resources it needs, you render that page. Kind of like if you, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm on a long article, quite often I'll right-click, open a new tab, right-click, open a new tab, and that will go ahead and render those pages. And whenever I finish the article or whenever I see they're loaded, I'll flick over there, read them, then go back to the article and finish it and stuff like that. So it's exactly like that, but it's happening in the background. So there's no tab showing there, but it's like a hidden background tab that Chrome is sitting there rendering the page, giving it full ready. And then if the user happens to click on that link, then we just swap that in seamlessly without you noticing. And then suddenly, boom, the page is just there, instantly drawn. And the important things is this targets navigations, not sub-resources. So there's an awful lot of other performance things where you can prefetch or preload sub-resources. So link rel preload, link rel pre-render, early hints, and those sorts of things allow you to do that. Getting the navigation, so the document, the first HTML you get, is actually a little bit more tricky. So you can use some of those. They don't work particularly well. There's a couple of nasty edge cases, particularly when you're fetching cross-origin or with cookies or that sort of thing, where it will fetch the document in one form, and then when you click on it, it'll go, this doesn't match at all, and refetch it anyway, so you're not saving anything. Or worse still, use the uncookied version and you'll be unlogged in even though you're logged in and that sort of thing. So there's a couple of nasty edge cases that, which is why we've come on with this new API that we want to use, and we say is better. I still think link rel preload, link rel prefetch is great for sub-resources, so it's getting JavaScript, getting CSS, getting LCP images and that sort of thing. But for navigations themselves, I caution against that, and I think this is a much better API. So yes, we did have link rel prefetch, link rel preload below, and as I say, it worked a little bit for preload, but not much. We also had link rel pre-render, which in theory did what this thing does and pre-renders the whole page. Think of it as a 0.1 version of this. So it kind of worked. There was a lot of things that I think we realized with that before my time at Chrome, but I know there was a lot of problems with it.
No, you're there.
Used a lot more memory than we really wanted. Some of the things didn't work and so on. So this is basically that rethought, the much more robust API, a lot more thought into what should pre-render, what shouldn't pre-render. And also we've made it a lot more easy to actually decide what you want to pre-render. So we'll talk about that sort of thing. So in a nutshell, why do you want to do it? It's because like in web performance, we're quite often talking about, oh, use this little tag in your HTML and you can shave off 100 milliseconds or 200 milliseconds. The reason I really like this API is because it is honestly a complete game changer. Because you can take a page that takes 10 seconds to load. And if you load it 10 seconds in advance, then whenever they click on it, it will just be there instantly. So it can make up for a lot of shortcomings in poorly performing website. That's not to say that you shouldn't improve those shortcomings, because the first time people go there, they're going to get that slow loading web pages. And Speculation Rules is mostly about intra-site navigation. So you're on page 8, a landing page or a product listing page, and then you click on the product themselves to actually look at it, or a list of articles, and then you click on the article. So getting to the page is still an important thing that we should optimize for. So you can't just ignore it and have a really performing website and say, hey, this sort of we'll work around that. We'll only work around it in certain circumstances.
All right.
Saying that, I do think, as said, it is magical. It can perform that. Depending how much lead time you give it, it can lead to a completely instant experience, which means that you're not going from, oh, I was at 2.6 seconds and now I've got it 2.5 seconds. Yay! In a lot of cases, there is lots of case studies to say that those such things do make a difference, particularly at scale, and people will start dropping off even for milliseconds that would seemingly be barely perceptible. But here you can sit down and say, I'm going from 2.6 seconds to 0.6 seconds, or much even faster than that, where it's just instantly going there. And I think that is a game changer for the web, because it gives a much more app-like feel, which everyone likes to say, or whatever, if you're clicking around and doing it. I also said that whenever if you Google something and you click on a site and it takes a little while to load, quite often you're a bit more forgiving of that thing there, and you're sitting there going, okay, I don't know whether it's Google at fault. It's never Google, by the way. Or I don't know if it's the site or my mobile network or something like that. But once you go to the site, if you then click on another link within that site, and that takes a while to load, people really then at that point absolutely blame the website and go, oh my God, this is such a poorly coded website. Why is it going on? Why is it taking so long and stuff like that? So I think you get a little bit of leeway for getting to the site, but within the site, people expect that, and it's natural, because you would hope they'd have a lot of the resources cached from that first page load, and the second page load would be a lot quicker. You're already connected to that server and so on. So I think the game only goes up, or expectations only go up for inter-site navigations, and that's why this API can be really important.
Okay, I learned a lot there as well. Holy shit. So yeah, nice summary of speculation rules, and yeah, kind of a successor. Would you say that speculation rules is already where it should be, or is it like you would describe, like link rel pre-render was a 0.1 version? Would you say speculation rules is a 2.0 version, or more of a 1.0 version?
I think there's still things that we can do with it, and I think it's one of the questions later, so we'll talk about that later. But I think some of the things, I think it's now ready, and that's what we think. This has actually been around in Chrome for over a year now. I think I first blogged about it.
Is it actually experimental still, or is
before? No, so this has now been turned on. So it was originally behind a flag, then it was behind an origin trial, and then it was turned on by default. This year we launched document rules, and I'll talk about what those are in a minute. So, and we've started turning on by default. It's now available for everything. We fixed a lot of bugs. We've added a lot of DevTools functionality, so it's really easy to debug. And we've got partners and platforms involved. So you're starting to see lots of people using this, and it's ready to me at this point for scaling
and it's so easy.
beyond.
And
that's
started is really easy.
Yeah, we have made it a lot easier than link rel pre-render. I think the main things that are maybe where people would say, why is it not production ready, is at the minute it is Chromium only. So that's Chrome, Edge, Opera, all the Chromium-based browsers. So we have asked for Firefox and Safari's positions. We've got kind of positive signals there, but no indication of if or when they would implement that. So that's one of the things that most people like them to be things to be common in all browsers. Now, on that, with a lot of performance things, I am okay with using that, because I see this as a progressive enhancement. If we can make it faster for a lot of your users, that's great. Ideally, all your users, but if not, you're not adding new functionality that people aren't going to get.
We also have browser support, I think.
Say again?
We also have a slide where we look at the browser support and what Safari and etc. is doing. I also believe there was a discussion going on Firefox, so that would be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I say we can talk about that more when we do it. But as I say, to me, it's progressive enhancement. We can make it better in doing that. If you have to code a lot around it and say, if Chrome do this, else do that, then that becomes less up to, developers are going to use it less. This one is basically there. If Chrome and Chromium-based browsers will use it, great. If not, everyone else will ignore it. I also say with a lot of these performance issues, and I say this as an iPhone user myself, iPhone users typically are at the top end of the performance spectrum. They're usually high performant, very powerful devices, often used in more sort of richer parts of the world. So they're quite often not where you have the performance issues. Android, in return, I mean, there's some very high-end Android phones as well, but they kind of span the breadth a lot more. And there's some very cheap Android phones that are not as performant and are based on many-year-old tech. So I'm okay with improving their experience. I think if it was flipped the other way around and this was something only aimed at the high-end market, I'd be a bit more hesitant going, no, that's not great, and do that. I always say it's quite good that we kind of tackle those sorts of things first. And if that means iPhone users don't get as much of an improvement, they probably don't need it as much. But saying that, I would love Safari to support this as well, and to see that.
Because see, the Safari is like in terms of time to first byte and first contentful paint. Like first contentful paint is measured a little bit different in Safari than in Chrome, if I'm correct. But in BRUM numbers, so data shows that Safari is in general way faster. And I actually, when I started working at BrumVision, I was curious of why this is, and yeah, hardware has to do with it. But apparently iPhone users tend to upgrade to a newer iPhone way sooner than Android users. I believe, yeah, you have some people on Twitter that always buy the newest iPhone, even if their iPhone 14 is a year old, for example. So all those things play a role in iOS having a little bit faster experience in general. But yeah,
I would guess so. Obviously, Apple don't share their sales numbers with me or whatever. But yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to a next slide, and then we can actually see it in action. If it does it play?
It should do. It's
okay, that's a hiccup. We'll get back to this in a bit. Normally, this should show a video. Yeah, maybe we can share it via our screen actually. Present, share screen. Back rules. Right, can we see this?
Yep.
Okay, I cannot see the chat anymore, but essentially, I don't know who recorded this, but...
So this was one of the partners we worked with. This is Tokopedia. They're an Indonesia-based e-commerce platform. I think Amazon for Indonesia. Now, I will be honest with this and say this is over a fast 3G connection with caching turned off, so we could compare the two sort of things. So it is a very sort of slowed down version, and is an extreme case of what you can get here. But it does show that, you know, without pre-render there, we saw it was taking 11.4 seconds, and with pre-render, it was like 0.5 seconds. So even on a slow connection, and even when it's really slow, if you give it enough headroom, and I say, depending when you pre-render, do you do it just before they're about to click, or do you do it in advance? They did it in advance for their 4 special offer pages. Then it can literally eradicate those sorts of problems completely and do that. Yes, I see you're in the know has that rug apparently. Funny story about that. You wouldn't believe that. We recorded that video for Google I/O, and we had an awful lot of problems with it because they show random images on their site every time you load of whatever happens to be that day, and every time you refresh, it's different ones. And for whenever you present stuff at I/O, you have to have whichever brands are involved, their sign off that they're happy to be presented by Google. And it was different brands each time, and then we would have to get in contact with them and all that. So we spent ages trying to find an unbranded product to actually show that demo. But anyway, quite amusing. But yeah, it does show the power. And as I say, an extreme example where it's going from 12 seconds to 0.5 seconds, but it does show you know, the potential of this thing, even in a slow connection. And as I say, like it will, in theory, hopefully get rid of TTFB completely, so you go to a 0-second TTFB.
Isn't that the case already? Like, yeah.
Well, it depends.
So if you give it the time to pre-render, then it will be 0 milliseconds.
Yes. Now, if you can do other things, you can do it just as you're hovering over a link, or whenever you start clicking on the link, do it. In that case, it may or may not have enough time to actually finish the fetch and get it. In which case, it will just take up. You'll get whatever benefit you get off there, and then it'll catch up there. So you might get a much shorter TTFB, or in a lot of cases, yeah, you will get a 0 TTFB.
Yeah,
I
and it
should
can also
warn.
be like if it starts pre-rendering and you click during the pre-render and the pre-render has been going on for 300 milliseconds, your time to first byte will then be still 300 milliseconds faster because it is partially pre-rendered.
Exactly.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Actually,
exactly. You get that headroom whenever you do it. With prefetch, it'll basically be able to fetch it from the cache and get it. With pre-render, it will already have started doing it and showed there. So TTFB is a big win there. I will warn that in the Crux data, we don't take pre-render pages into TTFB into account with that. So you may notice that your Crux TTFB number doesn't drop, and you'll be confused. That's one reason why. But certainly your FCP and LCP number should drop down.
Will that be added in the future? Like pre-renders being part of the
Yeah, I don't know whether you've noticed, but TTFB, if you go to PageSpeed Insight or something like that, it's got a little experimental Flask icon there to say it's experimental. And it's basically because we haven't got around to adding BF cache and pre-render to that. There was some debate about what should we do. Should it be a 0 second? If it is literally 0 second, should it be NA and not included? So at the minute it's NA. I think we should just get around to doing that, particularly as this becomes more common. But does it make your TTFB more meaningless or so on? But I hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's experimental. IMP was experimental. Does that mean TTFB is going to be a core web vital in the future? No, I can categorically say that no at the moment. It doesn't meet any definition of core web vital at the minute, which is going to be user-centric. It's just there's a couple of edge cases like that aren't included.
It's just a forever experimental metric, I guess.
No, it's just we just need to prioritize it and get around to doing it and seeing that. So yes, it won't maybe won't reflect in your Crux TTFB. It would affect in your RUM TTFB depending on that's measured.
Yeah,
and definitely FCP and LCP should go down in Crux, hopefully dramatically, because
but FCP will then still be faster, right? Like the FCP and LCP.
Yes.
Okay, so those on pre-render step.
Those do include putting back forward cache and pre-render.
Okay.
So you will see the impact of those ones. We just haven't got around to doing it for TTFB, so we really do need to do it. But yeah, and in a lot of cases that'll be a 0 second FCP or a 0 second LCP. It's not quite 0 because your browser does take a couple of seconds just to switch that render, or a couple of not seconds, milliseconds. So I think
0 is more.
We're going to talk about what the slowest one we saw, or the fastest one we saw is. But yeah, you should see a dramatic improvement in those. And I think what's also maybe not as apparent as on the next slide is it will affect also the other metrics. So if you skip to that, like,
I have one question from Tim.
Oh, sorry. Yes, your FCP can be lower in Crux than TTFB. Because of the fact that TTFB doesn't include BF cache. Or
has this happened already? Like, I can imagine if this is the case, people will question it in the web performance Slack. Have you had this question
I think I've
already?
seen some questions on Stack Overflow and then maybe in the Crux feedback list and stuff like that. It's pretty rare. You don't have a high number of
experiencing things like this.
Tim does have something like 50% of his page views on his site is are either pre-rendered or BF cache. So if anyone's going to see it, it'll probably be Tim's website there.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, as I started talking about, the other thing that people might not realize is it can affect all the other metrics too. So CLS, for example, quite often CLS happens during page load. You load it, things are moving around while the page doing. If that all happens in the background, then you will get that for free, effectively. You'll get 0 CLS because we measure what the user sees. So if it's pre-rendering in a hidden background tab and then it comes to forward and it's all beautifully laid out, then you get the benefit of that, and you will see the benefit of that in Crux, and it will show 0 CLS. Similarly for
FIT only with pre-render, so images won't be loaded with prefetch, and with pre-render they will pre-render more with CLS.
Correct. So prefetch will only get the image, the document, and not actually render it. Right. It can still help a little with that because maybe there's less network contention, there's less CPU, there's less stuff going on. So it can maybe get around to drawing those images before, or laying out those images before the first paint happens. But yeah, certainly with pre-render, it is much more likely to happen there.
Right. And
I say the interactivity metrics, FID and IMP. Who cares about FID anymore? But anyway, those ones.
You wait so long to remove it. No, just kidding.
It's still around for a little bit longer. But yeah, again, the busiest time for a page is quite often page load, particularly for multi-page websites, because it's got to run the whole page and do it. And if anyone tries to I'm sure we've all experienced it on your mobile. Page starts loading, you try and hit that hamburger menu, and nothing happens for ages, and then eventually it comes in and out. So by doing again that load in the background and just switching it in there, the user, whenever they interact, won't be experiencing a lot of that. Now, there's certain APIs that we delay until you activate, so there's still some JavaScript running there. But yeah, usually a lot less. So you can see quite improvements. And when we being Chrome, launched the back-forward cache a lot later than Safari and Firefox, I've got to admit, a few years ago, the biggest impact that we saw was to CLS rather than LCP, and we expected it to be LCP, to be quite honest. And we're quite surprised to see the CLS improved quite a bit. So again, it's the same thing with this, in that you'll get that instant pre-render. You should see an improvement to CLS.
Yeah. Now with IMP, like before speculation rules, people are using JavaScript libraries like instant.page. There are more around, and those are really, really, really small libraries that probably won't affect IMP. But with speculation rules being supported by the browser, you eventually can get rid of this JavaScript, and that might help a little bit sometimes.
Potentially. I think that one in particular is quite a small library. And what we've done is we've worked with them and we've added speculation rules support to them. So I mentioned earlier that there was a lot of caveats and edge cases with the other browsers that don't for link rel prefetch and cross navigation time. They take care of a lot of that for you. So a library like that still has value in my mind.
I agree.
But you can get some improvements, not as much as speculation rules. We'll use speculation rules where it's supported, and we'll try other things where it's not supported. And also, similar to like lazy loading, we added the loading equals lazy tag, which allows native lazy loading. There's still JavaScript libraries that will give you much more control of that, or when the data loads.
Like speculation rules isn't on that level yet, but it might become at the level where libraries become useless in terms of.
I think, again, similar to the lazy loading thing, is for a lot of use cases. I don't use JavaScript libraries myself. I'm like, the defaults are good enough. If I want some real, ability to change things, then I can go to a library, or want cross-browser support, I can go to a library. I think in a lot of cases, I don't think it's necessary for lazy loading. Maybe when speculation rules become more if it becomes cross-browser support, and maybe those libraries will have less value as well. We're also looking to add more features to it and so on. So I think for the basic use case, speculation rules as supported by the library is fine. It's great, and will do the job for 90% of the use cases. I think for more complex things, people may want to have more control over it, or might want to experiment and say, what if this happened? And then feed it back to Chrome and say, hey, we experimented and did it this way instead of that way, and you should do this, which is great to hear.
All right, let's move on. And actually, credits to Tim, who's also in the chat. He runs scalemates.com. And he's always, I think, as long as I've been in the web performance space, one of the early adapters of new stuff like speculation rules. And he doesn't just implement speculation rules, he does something to make speculation rules even more powerful. And the largest contentful paint in RUM, so actually not synthetic, but in RUM, was 20 milliseconds, which is insane. So check out scalemates.com. I always, if I have a question about how my client can implement some stuff, I check how Tim implemented this.
And I think that's very important now. Breaking news, you did tell me you got an 18 millisecond one since he published this tweet. But like 20 milliseconds is that's 0.020 as with LCP. That is like phenomenal, and that's going from a page to click on to another page for a full page navigation, not an SPA. I've seen some game people saying, "Oh well, we can get 16 frames per millisecond. Good for you. This is a complete separate navigation going there." So it really is phenomenal that you can get that. And again, we had a lot of debate about whether I should put this stat in the I/O talk that I did on there. Some people were like, "Oh, it's unrealistic," and Tim's weird speed nuts, and nobody else can get this. And I'm like, you can get like, okay, I think this is a highly optimized site, but
it's insanely optimized. But it's actually a site people are visiting. Like, it's not some kind of demo site. It's actually a user.
But I think 50 milliseconds is easily attainable by anything. I think to get 20 maybe a bit there. I think this is within reach of most people to do that. This isn't just only Tim can get this. This is like maybe not 20 milliseconds, but certainly 50 milliseconds.
I feel like you're pushing Tim to go for 15 milliseconds.
Well, it's disappointing that he can't make that. But anyway,
then 15. kind of weak, Tim. All right, so we've been talking about speculation rules, and yeah, we are developers, we SEO, product owners, whatever, and we want to make our website faster. And what you're seeing on your screen is, yeah, this is what the speculation rules look like. We're going to go over everything that's in it, like we see pre-render, eagerness, where, and then Ahref matches. But essentially, with this, you can already get a faster site. You can customize it in any case, in any way you want, and that's what we're going to cover, so that you can make it suitable for your use case. So yeah,
sorry, if you just flip back to that a second. So this, if you add this code to your website, you've enabled speculation rules and probably sped up a lot of your sites. So this is it. There is not 6 tons of JavaScript. There is not anything else you need to enable. It is literally a bit of configuration in this script with a type equals speculation rules. And that's it. And I think in the next couple of slides we'll actually talk about what each of these things do. But that's it. It's as simple as that.
It can be longer, but this is the most simple implementation and probably will work for most people. I would say you have to exclude some stuff,
good default for things. So I mean, start off. So the script type equals speculation rules. So it's a JSON object. It's not really a script. We're kind of using it a little.
JSON type is speculation rules.
Yeah. So the type equals speculation rules means that other browsers that don't support this. The good thing about HTML is it's quite forward thinking like that. So if it sees a type, say your Safari, if it sees a type it doesn't recognize and goes, I don't know what this type equals speculation rules, it'll just ignore it and it'll go to the next element. So that's how we add the cross browser, not support, but progressive enhancement there. So only browsers that understand this type will actually control it. And then it's a JSON object in that. And the first thing is what you want to do with it. As I say, there's 2 options at the minute, prefetch and pre-render. Prefetch will literally just make the navigation, ask for that HTML for that next thing, which in some cases might be enough, because if you've got a slow back-end process or a little used page, it takes a couple of 100 milliseconds to actually get. Maybe that's your main issue, and the rest of the stuff you've got cached. Pre-render, as I say, will do fetch the document, open up that hidden background tab, fetch all its sub-resources, and render the whole document in the background, making it, whenever you click on it, instant. Hopefully,
pre-render,
depending on how much pre-render it's got.
Pre-render is faster. Prefetch might make sense if you have a lot of URLs on a page, like.
Yeah, so I think there's prefetch is quite often a good entry point for this API, because pre-rendering can have some downsides. Like if you don't want certain JavaScript to the classic thing is analytics. If you're sitting there pre-rendering a page in the background and the user doesn't click on it, you're like, hey, I've got 100% extra URL visits this month. Well, no, because they didn't actually click on that. So certain libraries like Google Analytics will wait until it's actually seen before it renders a page view.
Can you exclude stuff from pre-renders? Like if you pre-render, it will pre-render all JavaScript? Have you said right?
Most JavaScript, but certainly, yes, things like analytics can run. So again?
Can you exclude ones that you don't want to? If you want to pre-render 90%, like one JavaScript ruining that's a waste. Like, can we prevent this?
Yes. So there's certain APIs that we're not going to cover here, but it's in the documentation. So you can sit there and say, I want to wait until the page is activated before this bit of JavaScript runs. Certain ones we will automatically hold back and not activate until that. So things that don't make sense for pre-rendering, so videos, audio,
iframes as well, right?
Those sorts of things we'll hold back. We also hold back third-party iframes and say, because they're often quite heavy things. It can be YouTube embeds or Google Maps embeds or chat widgets or something like that. We hold them back and say, no, they're not needed until we actually come forward. Ads as well, and that won't actually render until we do that. But yes, you can sit there and say, I want, as well as the defaults, I also want to hold back this.
Okay, and that's awesome that there's flexibility.
Say again?
That's awesome that there's a lot of flexibility in doing that not one JavaScript can ruin the whole pre-render.
Yeah, and I say particularly if it's an API that most we will run. There's a small handful we'll hold back and not activate until it activates, and then there's an even smaller handful that we just say, okay, this is extra weird. We're just going to cancel the pre-render and do that. I can't off the top of my head remember them because they really are obscure APIs. But if you happen to use them, then you could wrap that in a thing to allow you to still have pre-renders going on doing that. I say our hope is that more people will take this on. So Google Analytics, GPT, the Google Publisher Tag, and Google AdWords all hold and wait until we do that. Other analytics providers may not, so you may have to put those such things in it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, moving on. So the next thing you can do, you can either have a static list of URLs, which can either be hard-coded in the document if it's an SSG or a static site-generated HTML, or you can have this where clause, which is much more interesting. And the where clause basically means grab all the links on the page where this matches. So here we've said href matches /star. So we're saying every internal link, just go ahead and pre-render that. We'll talk about the eagerness in a minute, so we might not necessarily go ahead and pre-render them all.
And there's also, I'm seeing a lot of not. Like some pages you don't want to, because this can be tricky.
Yeah, exactly. So you can build up quite a complex where clause. So here we're saying in the bottom bit, we're saying match everything. However, don't pre-render the WP admin page if you're on a WordPress administrator page and you don't want to do that. Or don't pre-render anything with an add to cart prefix. Now, links and get links by default should not change state. It's part of the rules of HTTP, but the web is big and people do bad things all the time. And we find when we roll this out to WordPress, we find a number of e-commerce sites that were doing things like add to cart as a get link with a rel no follower. So that's how they were avoiding, Google bots or whatever, adding to cart and that sort of thing. You could even have a CSS class, do not pre-render, and if you apply that to any link, then we won't pre-render it. It's a particularly heavy one or something like that. So yeah, you can make this as complicated as possible.
But the rule of
and you can also dynamically inject these rules. Second,
like there's a rule of thumb with stuff you do not want to pre-render, seeing like admin panels, add to cart, no follow ones. Like, do you have seen anything people tend to forget about what you absolutely don't want to pre-render?
So those are the ones that we see. Anything that basically changes states. Again, technically it shouldn't do it. What's his name? Jeremy Keith wrote a blog post on speculation rules, and at the bottom of
it in the chat if you want, like people can read it.
Yeah, he had a bit of a rant saying you should not use links to change state, so yes, you shouldn't do. But as I say, some people will do that. So this is a way of excluding it. And again, something like prefetch might be less dangerous for that, because even if the link doesn't do it, when you run JavaScript, it might do that. So that's why for a complex site, you might want to start off that and measure it. Or start with a small, relatively safe area of your website, your blog or whatever, and then slowly build up to the more complex things like your add to cart pages, which might be a bit more complicated that you want to do.
All right, I have a lot of questions, so we have to go a little bit faster. So we have pre-render or pre-fetch. We know the difference between those two. We have where and like where not to pre-fetch or pre-render. You can also do both, like you can set a pre-render and a pre-fetch so that in one script tag you can do both, right, Barry?
Yeah, so you could sit there and say pre-fetch the first article on the news website, and as soon as the page loads, and it's fairly light, but it gets started, and then as they hover over the link, pre-render it. So you can kind of combine those. Now, if they get too close, there's some. It starts to kind of. I think Tim saw some things where he was pre-fetching on hover and then pre-rendering on click, and if they were close enough, it was actually 100 milliseconds slower than not doing either of those things. So it was kind of edge cases, and it was kind of overlapping things going there. But yeah, we got 3 eagerness settings at the minute. Well, technically 4, but 2 of them are the same. So you can sit there and say conservative. So the where clause will find all the links in the document, and if you've got eagerness equals conservative, then it will wait until you actually start to click on the link. Now that might sound like, what's the point there? You've already clicked on it, but there's normally about 50 to 100 milliseconds wait between you clicking there and then you letting go and the click handle registering, any sort of JavaScript running on the page, any unload handlers or anything like that before the click actually starts doing it. So you can usually get, and that's a very safe way of doing it because you've got almost certainly going to go there. It's possible to click on a link and then drag it away and then unclick it. I don't know if you've ever done that. I do it occasionally when I'm like, oh, I don't want to go there, but that's very rare. Mostly when you click on a link, you're intending to go there. So that can be a super safe one, but there's not a huge amount of lead time. You're talking 50 to 100 milliseconds. So hey, every millisecond counts, so it's good. Moderate, and I'll answer that mobile question when we get to that, does that, important. But also does it on hover. So you start to hover over link after 200 milliseconds. So if you're just moving your mouse over the page, you don't want to pre-render everything. So that's why that 200 millisecond comes in there. But if you're on there, and 200 milliseconds is actually really small. Once you're hovering over the link for 200 milliseconds, going, oh, well, I click on it, you can then pre-render it in the background. Whenever they do click on it, boom, it's faster. That does have a problem for mobile, because very few mobiles have a pointer or a mouse, and therefore it will just revert back to the mouse or pointer down. We are actively looking at this because we would like to do better on mobile for this. So we're looking as links scroll into the viewport. If it's in the middle of the viewport for a couple of seconds as people have scrolled down and are reading, should we pre-render there? So watch this space. There might be more to come on that space, but at the minute, the hover is primarily useful for desktop rather than for mobile.
I've seen it in data, like desktop pre-render. Like
it's usually you see a lot higher percentage and that sort of thing.
What's the
I have mixed feelings with this. I mean, in some ways, mobile they've got more constraints, and you kind of want to pre-render more often there. In other cases, in other things, they're usually you're paying for your contract. You might have limits on your contract and all that, so maybe you shouldn't pre-render. So, yeah, you got to be careful of this sort of stuff. But yeah, certainly moderate is only really for desktop in a minute. And then we have immediate and eager, which just basically means pre-render as soon as the page loads and whenever it gets a chance to.
All right. We have limitations as well.
Yeah, and I really want to stress this. If you go to a page with a lot of links, one of the ones that people will is the HTML spec itself is one of the biggest pages. I think it's the 4th biggest page in the internet. If you go there, or Obama's Wikipedia page, another one that people use because there's thousands of links, and you pre-render every single link there on the off chance that someone might click on one of those links, then your users will hate you. You will not be improving the performance for them. You will be killing the performance for them because pre-rendering 400 links on the off chance that one of them doesn't make sense. So to stop that abuse, we have got some limits in here. So we will sit there and say, 50 prefetches. That sounds like a lot, and it is now. Again, I talk about it more in the Google I/O talk, but the documents usually are quite small. At medium, they're like 30 kilobytes. So 50 is an absolute cap on that. You cannot go above that. Now you can technically remove them and add them there, but that's kind of to stop you. You've accidentally said every link eager. We're just like, okay, we'll do the first 50, and then we'll say, no, you're doing too much here. And similarly for pre-render, because it does a bit more, we do 10. I really don't advise you to hit these limits. These are not targets. These are absolute max caps for you.
People will go for the limits. Very spoiler.
I've had people sit there going like, oh, I can only get 10 links. I've got 20 links on my site. And I'm like, no, do better. Pick the ones that most likely you're going to do it.
You can literally use analytics to look like what's your user flow. And like, I think the basic implementation, people will often go for the limitations. But if you want to optimize it, grab analytics and look where you should pre-render to or
I can also see you making this point in the thing. It's not just the users that get this, it's yourself. If you don't want to suddenly triple or quadruple or 10 times your traffic, so every time someone goes to a page, they're actually visiting 10 pages. So yeah, you can cost yourself for this. It really should be, you've got a high confidence they're going to go to this other link. So
you actually set the limitations yourself. Like if you want to prefetch on immediate, but you don't want to hit 50, can you set a cap? Like, I don't think so, but...
No, you can't at the minute. So again, this is where I say JavaScript can help out. So you can sit there and inject the actual URLs you want, rather than using the document rules and where that. Yeah. So you could sit there and scan your own document, give you all the links and add them in there. And that's how you reach this. But again, Chrome, just to stop you shooting yourself in the foot, will say no after this. Now, in the modern conservative, we can actually have much lower limits. So this is the one where you hover over it or you start to click on it. So what we do there is we keep the last two in memory. So if you hover over link 1, we'll pre-render it. You hover over link 2, we'll pre-render it. You hover over link 3, what we'll do is we'll get rid of link 1, save that memory. We can always re-pre-render it later if you want to. and then we'll pre-render links. So you've got 2 and 3 in memory now, and so on. It's kind of a round robin as you move there. 5-4 base thing.
I asked Barry about this in the beginning, like, why is this only 2? But it actually made sense, and I didn't realize it. Like, if I hover over product 1 and then product 2 and go to product 3, the chance might be lower that I go back to product 1 because it didn't.
Yeah, and the other good thing is the API uses the HTTP cache. So as it's link 1 has got all its assets, anything that's cacheable in it, we will stick in the HTTP cache. You then hover over link 2, you hover over link 1, it gets rid of link 3, sorry. It discards link 1 effectively from the speculation. Then if you decide, oh, actually, maybe I will go to the link 1, you hover over link 1 again. That should be a much faster load because it will be able to get a lot of the resources from the HTTP cache and be able to pre-render it super quick. So it doesn't need to keep it in memory. We never did that. Yeah, we touched this earlier.
Yeah.
It is currently only supported in Chromium. Now, it's Chromium stable, without any flags, without any origin trials. It's available now to say we think it's ready for production use, and we're already seeing quite a lot of people using it. We are standardizing this. So this is in WCAG, W-I-C-G, which is the Web Incubation Group. It's kind of before things move to the proper standards, which in this case would be the HTML standard or whatever, where you experiment with these things. And then we reach out to other browsers and say, hey, what do you think? Now, Firefox come back. They've got some concerns that people are going to go crazy and overload that and asked what.
Yeah, they had some issues with it being JSON as well, right? Like I read they had some issues with it being a JSON or something like that.
They did. They were like, why do we need this? It's not very HTML-y. Should we? And we have talked about this ourselves. Should we just go and decorate each links with a pre-render attribute or something like that? I quite like the JSON personally. I think it allows quite complicated structures. They did say, well, it could be a link attribute where you have a where attribute and so on. I think it quickly gets unwieldy. Now you can have tooling that maybe shows it nicer and so on. But I quite like the extra. It's a bit weird at first, and I had lots of people comment on it. But I like it, and we've had no complaints from any implementers using it. Again, people seem to like it when it goes there. But that's what the standardization process is for other implementers to say, are you sure about this? Have you thought about that? And so on. So Firefox were reasonably positive, a bit worried about overuse and so on. Hopefully we've addressed those concerns with limits that we put in there and stuff like that.
Yeah. And if we
Safari,
wait, won't happen.
Well, I'll let you into a secret here. It's already happened in Safari. Safari did this first. Safari, if you go to Safari and type in www.g and you go to google.com, it will actually pre-render google.com. And you might notice it's faster.
Okay.
So they did this a few years back. We now do that in Chrome as well. But we've taken it one step further in that we're trying to standardize it, allow other browsers to implement it, and also allow web developers to do that. So they've done a lot of the stuff. And again, they hold back certain APIs, videos autoplaying, that sort of thing. So they've done a lot of the hard work here. So it would be nice if they finished it off and used the standards that we're proposing or helped work with us on the standard and also gave the ability to developers. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that they might do that. But Safari quite often hold their cards close to the chest and don't actually tell you until they get around to implementing it. But they've done an awful lot of the work there already.
Yeah, but for your context, or for viewers' context, they don't support. Do they support fetch priority high? I forget even.
They do. Actually, Galia, a third-party company, have added support to Safari and Firefox as well. So in theory, if they did a positive thing, we could get other people to implement it in Safari. But I think to be honest, this is going to be Chrome and Chromium only for some time now. I don't think the other browsers are going to put it in. Probably not this year, realistically. If you want it, reach out to them, tell them if you like it. Say that you want it, publish blogs, posts, put your pressure on and say that.
Wait, where do we reach out to Safari? Like, you work in a browser space and you have no idea what they are doing at all. How can we reach them? Do they have some?
Well, you can. There's developer advocates on Twitter and Mastodon that listen to those things. You can say in various surveys. So Stack Overflow is running a survey now and that sort of thing. Whenever you say what APIs do you want supported.
Okay, guys, don't be lazy. Just fill in the surveys, and that's me included. I never fill in surveys because it's annoying. But if we want to have nice stuff on the web, we should do it a little bit.
I think it was just yesterday, Jen Simmons from Apple reached out and said, hey, what do you guys want next, or what's causing you pain? So those are the sort of things where you can feedback and say that you really like this. You can publish blog posts, publish articles saying this is great, I did this and it was really helpful, and it would be great if Firefox and Safari supported it. Show that there's a need there and a desire to use this API, and it's not just Chrome coming up with something that nobody's going to use.
Perfect. All right. So I actually had a setting on in my browser. Barry knows the name of the setting, where none of my URLs were pre-rendered or pre-fetched. So when testing my DevTools, I was confused. But there are some other things that can prevent pre-renders and pre-fetches from happening. And some of them are like data saving, like a mobile or browser setting, energy saver save, memory constraints. I'm not sure. How do you decide whether the memory is constrained? Like high-end devices versus low-end devices, or
no, sort of. Like there is, again, this is us. The fact that it's a browser API rather than a JavaScript framework doing something means that we can set certain things and say, I don't care whether you want to do it, we're not going to do it under these sort of things. So save data is a massively underused thing where people can go on there and say, I'm on a mobile network and very low data caps. Please don't go crazy and download high images or whatever. So that's a setting that in OS criminally underused, unfortunately. Okay. Energy saver is a recent thing that we did in Chrome. So if you're on your laptop and you go on the battery, once it gets down to 10%, I think it is, it will start slowing animations down, discarding tabs quicker and that sort of thing, just try and drag that battery out a little bit. So we're saying, well, pre-render doesn't, you're trying to save your energy, it doesn't make sense to pre-render these things, so we won't do it. No. Memory constraints, I don't have a specific thing for this, but Chrome does monitor its own memory, and I know some of you won't believe that, but it does, and if it sees it's using a lot of memory, it will say, or you've got 200 tabs open.
But this is the memory when I hover over my tab, memory usage is
the sum of all those for all the tabs. Okay. So if you've got 100 tabs open and it says Chrome is using a lot of memory, it will say, okay, I'm not going to make the situation even worse by having some hidden tabs as well. So we'll sit there and say, oh, that's enough and wait to it. I think in low-end devices with only a gig of RAM or whatever, that's much more likely to happen. So you might not get that there. The big one that I see a lot of complaints about is this: there's a preload pages setting in. So if you go to Chrome://settings, there's a performance tab, and right down the bottom there's preload pages there. That defaults to on whenever you install your Chrome, but there's certain extensions, uBlock Origin is a popular one, that will turn that off. And they promote privacy over them. They're like, we don't want you to go ahead and get pages in the background that I don't want. That might load something else I don't need. Now, I think this is it's a valid concern. That's fair enough. That's an opinion they've got. I think for intrasite pages, once you're on the website, the web page is kind of in control anyway. So yeah, it's a shame because I think this is a good performance boost there. You can turn it off in uBlock Origin. If you go into that setting and you notice it's off and there's a little jigsaw puzzle, hover over that and it will tell you which extension it is that's turned off. I think there's only like 3 or 4 that will turn this off. I think some very privacy conscious browsers, Brave and stuff will turn this off by default. I think Arc installs uBlock Origin by default, so again, that will turn that off. So there's some things like that where it will turn off. So if it's not working, we will tell you in DevTools that why it's not working, and you can go in there and check that. I have heard of some people saying, oh, that setting's on, but I don't remember switching it on. I can tell you from a clean install, we will default it to on, so I don't know why it's got off. I don't know if it's an enterprise policy from your company, or you accidentally went and clicked it, or you read some article somewhere saying, hey, turn this privacy feature off to stop Chrome snooping on you. But yeah, as I say, I think these things are really useful. I think the browsers do an awful lot to try and make your website faster. So of course I'm biased, and some people will take more of a stringent stance on this. But yeah, that's kind of an annoying one. And similarly, if you open a background tab, we won't speculate anything with that background.
I'm sad. I always use like clicking on my middle mouse, especially if I'm on an e-commerce store and on listing sites and I want to compare products. I don't want to click on the product and open it in the same tab because I want to navigate back to the listing page. So I always open stuff with my middle mouse. So I won't benefit that much.
Well, no, sorry. To be clear here, that is true. Though we're going to offer sites the ability to pre-render it with the middle tab. or at least reuse the pre-render if it's already done. No, I'm more talking about if that page that you open then pre-renders another 3 links, we won't pre-render those other 3 links until you go to that page. So we're basically saying,
okay, it needs to be visible. Like
exactly. There's no point in pre-rendering a page that you're not even looking at. Wait until you look at it and then pre-render it.
Yeah, right. So mentions, like, I think WordPress was the first even platform.
They were one of the big ones. So Google works with WordPress, and they're I think most of the WordPress performance team is Googlers. Apologies to other people if that's incorrect. But they came up with this plugin where you can install it really easily. There's 2 settings, whether you want to prefetch or pre-render, and which you can setting that you want to use. You install this if you've got a WordPress site. You install this. I think pre-render and moderate is a good default setting.
This is the basic implementation as we started out with. It's not flexible or based on.
You can, if you go into PHP code, change it and exclude certain URLs and stuff like that. They haven't exposed that as a setting. Maybe they will if enough people want it, but yeah, no, that's a basic one. We saw 10,000 sites, WordPress sites installed already, so it's quite huge.
Nice. I actually recommended it to a lot of WordPress people already, so if you know someone being a WordPress user, send this link. Also, Hyvä, it's for Magento 2, a new team, or new. It still feels new, but they've been around for a bit. They also have an admin setting where you basically can turn it on like yes and no. I feel like it's a little bit of the same as WordPress is doing. We have a lot of Hyvä clients in Room Vision because we are both Dutch agencies or Dutch companies. So if you're on Hyvä or know someone, recommend this because it's literally typing yes or dropping down and saying yes. And I created this slide because I knew people in the chat would be joining from other platforms. Sia from Shopify, Tone did something for Shopware. They built a plugin or app, I don't know how you call it, for Shopware. So yeah, Tone shared this message. You can literally install this. I'm not sure how this works. I'm not working with Shopware, but there's also a new plugin for them. And Sia answered some questions. For Shopify, we are looking to make it an app plugin, but just apply globally across all Shopify sites. We're just waiting until the bug fix is more right. Okay, awesome, Sia. Thank you.
Yeah, and like if you work for a platform, I don't know, if you're a developer on Magento, whatever, any CMS or something else that you think would make sense to, it'd be great to do that. Feel free to reach out and I'll help you to tell you what to do. I probably won't know the platform, but I can walk through it. It'd be great to see this used more. Oh, there's a Magento one already. But yeah, if you publish your own smaller thing, or if you use it a lot, then yeah, do that.
I think we should skip this one for a bit because we've already tackled a little bit. Have you something you would like to share that we missed, Barry, about the future of speculation rules? Like, we know you want to add some stuff.
So we're talking about mobile. We are looking at what other things make sense there. Can we use Magic AI? That's the word of the moment. So can we figure out what's more likely to be clicked on? You better believe we're looking at these sorts of things. And yeah, we'll see. I think those are the things that are mostly going to change. I think other than that, it's pretty much ready. Bugs, and Shopify, so you mentioned earlier, Shopify found one. We're fixing that next version of Chrome. So if you come across anything like this, let me know, and we can see it there. I think it's pretty much ready there. There's a few edge cases like that, but in general, it should be ready to use.
Right.
Great question, even better answer.
Yeah, Jesper in the chat asked this in the beginning, and I said we are going to cover it. Will it fix all your problems? No. I think it will. I hope not. But
I covered this a bit earlier in that it's for intersite navigations. It won't. Well, not strictly true. When you go to Chrome, again, similar to Safari, if you start typing in, if you use your bookmark bar from Google search results, we're starting to use this API prefetch at the minute, but maybe at some point we'll pre-render. But a lot of the pages until you get there. Other browsers, again, and let's say I'd support this, won't do it. So this is a little bit of a patch around it, but I think it's a good one. I think it's simple to implement, so I think people should look at it. But yeah, you should still look at your performance. The other massive caveat is that this is for full page navigations as controlled by the browsers. It is not for SPAs and so-called soft navigations where the frameworks do that. That doesn't do a page load, that just fakes a page load in effect. So the framework is in charge of that. But this is one reason where maybe using an SPA, which has been touted as a performance enhancement for inter-site applications, might not be necessary anymore if you don't want to do that sort of thing, because you can actually get a fast thing without that, or potentially even a faster one.
Yep, that will save a lot of money as well, from what I know. So no. But yes, I think that's the correct answer.
Yeah, I mean, there's always, it depends, but I think it's a very easy thing to implement and a kind of massive benefit. But no, nothing's going to solve everything.
Yeah, small plug for Envision. No. How we measured it, like on this screenshot on the right, you can see percentiles, and actually this is from a page that was being pre-rendered. So we are also looking mainly only at pre-rendered pages. And we can see that 15% of the time to first byte resulted in a 0 time to first byte. So it's kind of hard to measure still. And I believe someone on the Web Performance Slack, like, what are RUM vendors doing in terms of measurement? And we have some ideas, but for now I want to share, like, we can see that 15% literally resulted in 0 milliseconds. Another 60%, so from the 15th percentile until the 70th actually, resulted in a faster time first byte, because you can see at the 65 and 70 you can see a jump, and that is where the value of speculation rules is still there, but it might be a little bit less. But when we're talking about percentiles and good UX, it's actually insane that we managed to get a good, insane actually time first byte for 70% of the users. So this is just an example of what it could do and how it could show in RUM. We hopefully in the future we can make some other fancy graphs to see a success rate, for example. Demo. I'm going to share this link in the chat because we are kind of running out of time and people have to get dinner probably. Tackle some of the questions. Can speculation rules be implemented via Google Tag Manager? And I think this question was asked on
so
LinkedIn.
I say the basic way is just put that JSON object in a script object. So anything that can add HTML to a page, and Google Tag Manager can do that. If you want more advanced things where you want to inject it based on your own heuristics, I don't know, make a call to your analytics provider, figure out which are the most common ones, and then inject the URLs for those ones. That might be a bit much for Google Tag Manager, but again, you can just install a script. So in theory, you can do that. But absolutely, yes.
This is actually from Ryan.
Yeah, I think we covered this one.
We covered this one. It was a great question, and Erwin is also in the chat. When one of our first clients implemented pre-render, we also discussed, like, why is desktop faster, and then it clicked, but it's because of this. And I'm happy to hear from Barry that even mobile users in the future, I'm not sure when, will benefit a bit more from speculation rules.
And I didn't talk about this, but yeah, basically, rather than inject it into the HTML each time, you can have a HTTP header pointing to where your rules live. That way, all the pages can use the same set of rules, for example. That's really good for rolling out via CDN. So Tim, on earlier, works for Akamai. He published a blog post about doing that. So you can, if you don't have access to change your page, your HTML, or you're using a CMS, it's very limited, or it doesn't let you do that. But you're going through Akamai or Cloudflare or whatever, any of those sorts of things, they usually allow you to add headers, so you could publish this file somewhere and point to it.
All right. Oh yeah, this was the browser setting we were talking about.
Yeah, again, I think we covered this one. So
yeah, so if you Chrome settings performance, can we pre-render or prefetch to other domains? And currently, no, right? Unless they do something?
With caveats. So you can prefetch cross-domain, but only without cookies. We don't want to send cookies without users allowing that, and also it causes some problems when they're doing that. So if we see there's no cookies for this domain, we'll go ahead and do that and prefetch it, and then use that. If we see there's cookies, we'll hold it back and we'll cancel it. Because, as I say, it causes some problems and some interoperability issues that Link-Rel Prefetch doesn't handle at the minute. Pre-render doesn't currently work cross domains. It's something we're looking at.
No,
what it does do is work what we call cross-site. So if you are example.com, from a.example.com, you could pre-render from b.example.com. There's some extra setup you have to do, some headers to tell it that that's allowed and that it's okay. But that's possible. Totally across domain. So Barry.com wants to pre-render something on Yordi.com. No, at the minute that's not, but it's something we're looking at. And again, it'll be an opt-in method where the site will send a header saying this is allowed for various security reasons.
Awesome. Oh, yeah, I saw this. Is there something about this in the documentation as well? Like, will it?
Yeah, we touched on this earlier. So
yeah,
you could suddenly see an uptick whenever you turn this on and saying, "Hey, we're getting a lot more visitors," but you aren't if they aren't actually clicking on it. So again, we hope more analytics providers will become aware of this API and wait and hold until they actually look at the page. Google Analytics does it already, but yeah, you need to be aware of that. That if the page loads, and the same if you right-click on a page and open it in a new tab and then close the new tab without visiting it, it will register as a page view, but maybe the person never actually viewed that page. So that's something to be aware of.
All right. Good question from Sia. If you have multiple instances of speculation rules being set, do later ones override previous one, or are later ones ignored?
Great question. So you can have multiple speculation rules and they will sum them all up. What's more interesting is if you've got one speculation rule and then you redefine something. So I don't know, you've got pre-render. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. You've got a pre-render object and then another pre-render object and another pre-render object. The way the rules of JSON work, that third one will overwrite the first two and effectively replace those first two. So it's a bit of a combination of both. If they're completely independent rules, they're fine. They'll be cumulative and both will be in play. Now, if you speculate the same URL in both, it's clever enough to dedupe and not do that. But if it's within the one JSON object, the JSON rules apply and it will dedupe as it sees makes sense.
Right. Another one from Jordan. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Would cross-domain work with cookies for subdomains of the current domain?
No. So again, well, we haven't quite got there in Chrome, but we are going for a partition model of that. So the cookies will stay related. It'll be related to the top frame, so it'll be the exact same as the way it happens. And that's one of the reasons that for prefetch, which is a resource from this page but going to be used for another one, that's why it doesn't work with cookies. So it's a complex question, that one.
Oh yeah, this is actually a great one, and some people are concerned about it, others don't give a shit. How to ensure that my traffic and digital footprint remains limited in terms of impact? Because essentially we might be prefetching or pre-rendering resources that are never being used, and yeah, we are having some carbon emission of this, and I think you have an opinion about this, Barry, because I saw something in your Google I/O slides.
Yeah. So yes, it's a concern. And as I say, we put in limits, we put in lots of things there to try and limit this, and it is something I hear about a lot. And we don't want people to go ahead and pre-render a million times. I did a whole section of this in my talk, so I encourage you to work with that if it is a concern of yours. Would say with the use of the HTTP cache, with the use of particularly not loading third-party iframes in when it's in that pre-rendering state and that hidden state, that solves a lot of the things and actually reduces a lot of the cost of these things. We also get people saying, if you don't visit the page, that's completely and utterly wasted. Why would you do that? We can actually, again, because we'll download stuff, we'll put it in the HTTP cache, you might go to that page later. Or more likely, if you pre-render product A, you're on a product listing page, you pre-render product A, you click on product B. A lot of the assets will likely be common between the two pages. So you will make product B faster and it will reuse it. So product A, bit of a waste in it, but not complete waste. I mean, a lot of the resources will be used there. Also, I mentioned lazy loading is incredibly popular in the web now. So we won't load the whole pages in the web. So quite often I see people going in there, running a page and saying, this is a 10 megabyte web page. If you pre-rendered that as 10 megabytes you're doing. Well, one, stop doing 10 megabyte web pages. But two is how much of that is reused. And web page test makes this easy. If you go in and run the page, it will usually give you a first view and a second view. That second view is a lot lighter because it's not re-getting every single asset there. So similarly, because this is for an inter-site navigation, a lot of the stuff you've probably got downloaded. You've got your logo that appears in the top left-hand page for your home button. You've got probably I don't know, site.css, site.js. So there'll be a lot of assets that are common towards it. Imagery, logos, icons, fonts are all be the same. So looking at the full cost of a page is the wrong way of doing it, because that's quite often not the cost of a next navigation anyway. And as I say, it's even smaller than that because we don't load iframes and stuff like that. So absolutely be concerned with this. Don't go crazy and don't preload everything, but do have a look at how much it actually costs there and whether it's worth it.
Nice. Also for you, Barry, Jordan.
I saw that. Jordan, feel free to
awesome.
reach out. I'm in all the socials, so ping me if you want any help. That would be great to see what we can do there.
Awesome. Yeah, third-party iframes.
Third-party iframes, certain APIs, as I said, the ones that kind of obvious ones like joining a webinar. It wouldn't join the webinar. It wouldn't do any of the media sort of stuff. So playing videos, getting access to your microphone, getting access to your camera, and all that. Those things they're basically held back until that happens. And as I say, there's APIs for you to do it.
Yeah. Awesome. That was my question, I believe. Yeah. Okay. So with speculation rules, we can actually start working towards instant navigations for MPAs. So we get that app-like feel, but it's not only speculation rules that are helping for this. The Chrome dev team also worked on back-forward cache. And Barry, you want to share some stuff about this?
Yeah, so this is very similar to BF cache. The BF cache is more for going back to something. This is about going forward to something. So I think they're very complementary, and I've been moaning on about that for the last 2 years. So definitely encourage. This is another way of doing that, because they're basically free navigations in the sense of web performance. And I mentioned earlier, Tim, I think he gets something like 50% of his ones from either speculated one.
That's so much. I would be surprised if you have 10 already. Like 10, 20 is already insane.
Yeah, so there's a lot there, and that's ones where you don't need to worry about your core web vitals. So you can concentrate all your time on those other 50% of pages. Again, that's very high. Let's say 80% is more realistic once you start looking at these things. But yeah, and we recently released navigation types in Crux, so you can actually go in and have a look what your pre-render things are. So if you look at the Crux dashboard, you can just type in any URL, type it in there, and it will tell you 10% of your navigations are already being pre-rendered by Chrome. Why don't you get that up? And it's great to actually do that. So you can see that for your website, even if you don't have any of the analytics on this. Or RumVision has a nice tool to show it as well.
I was going to say, Barry, watch out. Now you can go to either of the tools. In the one I shared in chat, you can essentially enter your own URL. Works the same as what Barry described. Then you scroll down to devices, and there's a small drop down with choose. And then you can click on navigation type. So you can then see 3.1% is back forward, and 0% of that is BF cache. So that means there's a gap of 3.1% of pages that ideally could be instant. So make sure to, besides looking at speculation rules, start looking into BF cache. And some platforms make it harder. Like I see Ollie J is sharing something, but Magento 2 is the platform that makes it a little bit harder. And I think his extension makes it easier. And this is because, I don't know if you notice, Ollie, that varnish, no store, no cache must revalidate. And Barry, I had this discussion with Gilberto that, what was it? Yeah, Magento 2 stores have a hard time with BF cache because of the setup. You also want to investigate no store?
Yeah, so cache control no store is a way of saying don't store this page, so therefore don't do it in BF cache. We actually ignore that for pre-render. So even if it's no store, because we hold it in memory rather than HTTP cache, we then will allow you to navigate there. So that doesn't affect pre-render, but it does affect BF cache.
Awesome. All right. Now check out Ollie's extension to make it easier for Magento 2, I guess.
Yeah.
Free browser extension, small plug. If you type in the Chrome extension store, what even is the name of it? Chrome Web Extension Store? I don't know. Chrome Store. Okay. We built a Core Web Vitals history checker, which is essentially the same as the link I just shared. But if you click on the extension, it will get the data for all or the URL you're currently on. Oh yeah, Jesper's question you are currently answering. If you want to speak about this question, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I started answering this because I wasn't worried we were going to put it off. I think we're over time, but I'm happy to stay a little bit longer and answer questions here. So this one, yeah, could you prefetch links first and only after links you want prefetch or prefetch then start pre-roundup? No, you tried this and they run at the same time. No, they will run at the same time. Because the pre-render happens in a separate background process, like I say, a whole other tab. Don't know whether you've noticed, but in all modern browsers nowadays, the tabs are kind of independent. So if one tab freezes, the rest of your browser doesn't, like it did in the good old days. So no, it's completely separate. So it doesn't really make sense to do that. Normally, what I would advise is prefetch earlier. So on page load, prefetch a couple of your core links that you think are going to be needed. Maybe your headline article, maybe your most popular product, whatever, and then pre-render on maybe on hover or on mouse down, and because you've already prefetched it, we'll be able to reuse it. But if you click them on both in the same eagerness setting, then they will race each other, which is kind of a bit pointless to be honest. And again, you can decide to do it in your own way if you've got a better way that we haven't thought up of. Use JavaScript to inject this list of URLs rather than use that where clause and pre-render as soon as you inject that list. If you've got a better idea of this, I'm not convinced about this idea, but maybe prove me wrong and show me how it's better. You can do that yourself with JavaScript.
I know Jesper is going ham with the speculation rules. He had this really good success with it already. So
yeah,
challenge accepted, Jesper.
Really well.
Sorry, Ollie said no store does impact speculation rules, I think, because it prevents adding documents in HTTP.
So this is a big thing. We don't store it. Well, we do store it in HTTP cache, and we'll get it from the HTTP cache if it's there. But for prefetch, link rel prefetch will fetch it, stick it in the cache, and then use it whenever it needs it. For speculation rules prefetch, we will fetch it, hold it in memory, which we're allowed to do even with no store set, and then it will use it. So it won't help if you don't immediately go there and think, oh, well, I'll store it in HTTP cache and get it later. No store says don't do that. But it will help for that one. Speculation rules does work with no store. But please don't use no store. Use no cache if you have to. There's a whole document.
Or just a really short caching time, caching duration.
Yeah, exactly. It's very rare. I see these blog posts with no store because, every time they publish a blog post once every 2 months, it is critical that there's not a second goes past.
That pisses me off, actually.
They update that. Like, put a half-hour cache time or an hour cache time, and your users will like you for it, and means it can be stored in the if you're using a CDN in their cache. So if you write that viral blog post and 10,000 people hit it, the CDN takes a hit rather than you. But anyway, test it. You'll see speculation rules does work with no store.
All right. Yeah, we are kind of over time, but it's actually fine because still 45 people are watching. People started dropping off at 5 because we said the webinar takes up to 5. Actually amazed by how many people joined. I believe 140 registered and 70 showed up. So I guess that's nice. Thanks for being so active, chat. That's also nice during a webinar that you can interact with the chat. You can ask questions, and I hope you've learned. If you're going to implement speculation rules after this webinar, tag us on Twitter. Barry is most active on Twitter, I guess, or Slack. Me on LinkedIn, whatever you want. Don't be shy. Even if it's like a 50 milliseconds time to push byte improvement, still celebrate it. It's a lot. And thanks for joining. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
I'm gonna say one more thing. Is we produced a code lab. I'll just put the link in chat there. If you just do code lab speculation rules, it will just walk you through setting up a dummy site, adding a couple of tests, links, take you through the DevTools stuff that we didn't get a chance to cover today. It's a really easy follow along thing. I think I've said it takes half an hour, but you can sit through it a lot quicker if you want to. It's a really easy way of playing with this before you put it on your own site, and actually seeing how easy it is and how impactful it is. I recommend checking that out and having a look at that.
Yeah. Also, we have a web performance Slack. Currently, we are almost at 2,000 members, and it's a really nice space. Like, people are helping each other with best ways of implementing stuff. It goes way beyond speculation rules. If you want to join that, leave your email or send me an email. with your email. Send me an email with your email, and we can invite you. So, yeah.
Cool. And any questions I didn't get a chance to cover, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Mastodon, wherever
Your
you can
Twitter
find me.
is not your name, it's Tune the Web.
Tune the Web.
Why is that?
Tune
the Web.
I know, I was embarrassed to use my real name, and now I'm stuck with it forever. So it's on that on most things. But yeah, I'm happy to answer questions. It's my job, as I said at the beginning, to answer these things, and I'd really love to see this API being used more. So yeah, feel free to hit me up. I'm pretty approachable and pretty friendly.
You have a nice name, Barry. All right, thanks, guys. We'll be here in here for 2 minutes, and then we'll end the webinar.
Cool. Thank you very much, all of you, for making this an interesting talk. And
I learned a lot as well.
I didn't answer everything. I wasn't able to keep up with the chat. It was moving so fast.
This was the most active webinar chat I've experienced myself. So, damn. Okay, writing down Luca's email, Tiago's email, Edwin's email. However, you're not in the Slack yet, Edwin. I feel like
I'm surprised at that one.
Your email tag is literally Web Performance Report, and you are not in the Web Performance Slack. Uh-oh. Andy's going to hate me with all the requests. He's an admin there, right?
He is, and he's usually pretty good.
He's insanely fast. Don't ask stupid questions in the Slack. They will blame me.
It's a very friendly space. There's a lot of conversation
nice,
going on there now. Twitter's dying a little bit, but it's a bit annoying that you have to be invited, so you can't see it with the default.
Yeah, but I think to keep the quality of the Slack high, it's nice. Mauricio at tinker.it drawer. Jeez. If you want to leave, Barry, feel free to leave. I'm writing down emails from the chat.
Yeah, do you get a transcript of those chats afterwards? Love to see that if you do.
Yeah, I think we do. But I'm not too sure. That's why I'm writing down the emails. Yay. Advice. Chris Naven at visionhealthcare.eu. Okay, Edwin at webperformancereport.com. I'm afraid I'm missing one, and then I won't be sleeping well tonight because I feel guilty.
Well, if you don't get an invite in the next couple of days for the WebPerf Slack, feel free to reach out to Jordi and myself, and we will get you re-added.
Okay. Bocco. A nice New York Post. Maybe I will visit New York this year. Depends. Leander. Hey, hoe gaat het, Leander? Letto.nl. Tiago at extra.com. Oh, thanks, Aaron. But I'm now finished already. All right.
Cool, we'll call it over there.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And you'll get an email with the replay if you want to rewatch, zoom in on our beautiful faces. Feel free. See you later. Bye-bye. Thanks.
All right. Cheers, all. Bye.